Welcome to RealGM Radio. Before we jump in, do me a favor and subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel to catch the podcast when we record live, tune into the best segments, and join the RealGM Radio community. It helps me, it helps you, it's a win-win. Find us on youtube.com/@RealGMRadio. All right, what's up? It's RealGM Radio. I'm Wes Goldberg. It is the Monday after opening weekend of the NBA playoffs. I've got notes and observations on every series, including one that I am stubbornly not changing my opinion on. Let's jump in. All right, what's up? Wes Goldberg here, RealGM Radio. It is the Monday monologue. I have 8 notes and observations on all 8 of the NBA playoff games. We got game ones for every single series. We're going to try to do 8 series in 16 minutes, just spending a couple of minutes on each of them. Let's start from the beginning and work our way up to the last game, Sunday night, Warriors-Rockets. We're going to start Bucks-Pacers. It was game 1 on Saturday. The Pacers style won out. That's my big takeaway in this game. The Bucks, they want to slow it down, but this game was played to the Pacers' tempo. They are dictating the terms of engagement on this one. It is going to be something to watch every single game, especially within the first few minutes. Milwaukee, they want to get Giannis in the half court, slowing things down a little bit more. Obviously, you want a little bit of or a significant amount of transition stuff with Giannis, but really when we're talking about it, you just don't want to be playing that much into the Pacers' hands, especially when Indiana's on offense. The Pacers had a bunch of success against Milwaukee's drop defense, and that's the other thing that I'm watching in this one, because even if they do get slowed down into a half-court game, it just feels like they know that they could poke at Brook Lopez in that pick and roll over and over again. Halliburton, Mathurin even, Nembhard, these guys just running pick and roll, getting Brook Lopez in the drop, pulling up into the shots that they want, and as long as those shots are falling, they're going to be fine, and guys like Halliburton, guys like Mathurin, they can get downhill, they can get past Brook Lopez. One of the things I pointed out in our playoff preview with Jared Dubin last week was how many minutes is Brook Lopez going to be able to play in this series? I think it's a big thing I'm watching. I mentioned Mathurin, loved his physicality in this game. He didn't shoot it really well, but he went 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Remember, he wasn't part of this in the playoffs last year. He's obviously a part of it now for the Pacers. He's kind of an interesting X factor for them, and I just think, okay, what is Mathurin doing? I don't know that they need him to be great to win this series, but this is a guy who's a top 10 pick. I mean, there's a ton of talent here, and he's just sort of interesting in terms of what this means for the Pacers going forward. If this is a guy who can raise his level in the playoffs, that's interesting to me if I'm Indiana. I still don't know that the Pacers have an answer for Giannis, but he was awesome in this game. 36 points on 61% shooting. And yet it didn't matter. The Pacers still cruised to a win. This was a beatdown. And if Giannis is going to be that good and it's not going to matter, that's going to be a problem. Obviously, other guys can make more shots. I'm not saying that the Pacers are going to go ahead and sweep Milwaukee. I would bet against it. But the other part of this now is that they clearly need Damian Lillard. It was the big question is Damian Lillard coming back? If he is coming back, when does he come back? You know, we're starting to hear that he's been cleared for basketball activities. Still no real indication of when he's going to be able to play. And if he does play, will there be a minutes restriction? What's he going to look like? I mean, this is a serious thing that this guy went through. So I'm kind of just not counting on him. That doesn't mean I don't think he can come back or be impactful, but I don't know that if you're a Bucks fan, you're sitting here and you're just like, we'll be fine when Damian Lillard comes back, because I don't think that's how you can think of that. All right, first game in the Bucks. Let's move on. Clippers-Nuggets. This was the best game of the weekend. No question. I also think that Denver stole this one. The Nuggets won this game in overtime. Big Russell Westbrook stuff at the end that we'll get to here in a second. But if you're a Nuggets fan, I don't think you walk away and you're like, yep, we've got the blueprint. We know how to win this series. The Clippers are just a tough matchup. They made things difficult on Jokic on both ends. Zubac, as I pointed out going into this series, is nobody stops Jokic, but there are guys who can make it a little bit more difficult for him. We don't have to act like this guy is like a cyborg who just floats over the entire game, even though it feels like it sometimes. But Zubac is a guy who can at least body him up. There was a few possessions there where even when Jokic makes the shot, it's a little bit harder than what he wanted to. He gets a little bit flustered when that physicality is ratcheted up in that way. So I think Zoo did a really nice job. And then defensively, I thought Jokic was kind of a mess. And it's not something I think I thought about enough going into this series, but James Harden and Zoo, that is such a professional pick and roll attack. It is so clean. It is so crisp. They've been working on it. They have so many reps together that when you're getting Jokic into that kind of space and you're making him move his feet like that, that is when he tends to get in a little bit of trouble. It hasn't been an awesome Jokic season defensively overall. I don't think it's been terrible. I think Jokic is a little bit better defensively than I think some people give him credit for, but the rim protection stuff is what it is. And if you're Harden, you know that you've got the floater in your bag. You know that you can get to, there's guys on the Clippers who can get to the basket when Jokic is defending the basket. So that was a mess, I thought, in game one. He's going to have to be better defensively for the rest of this series. But the Clippers, they lost because of two things: 20 turnovers, and they fouled 25 times. I've seen it out there that maybe the Clippers outplayed Denver. I'm not going to disagree with that. I feel better, though, about the Clippers leaving game one than I did about Denver leaving game one, again, despite the result in this. But 20 turnovers and 25 fouls is bad. That means you played poorly in two really major categories. So they have to clean that up. Some of it was unforced errors. Some of it you got to give credit to Denver too. But I thought the Clippers, most of that, like when we're getting into 20 turnovers, 25 fouls, that's a lot of unforced errors. You have to be better if you're the Clippers there. And if you clean that up, I mean, if you do that, you should have gotten blown out. The fact that this game went to overtime and you lost by 2 points kind of says a lot. And again, is a reason why if I'm a Clippers fan, I'm walking away from this first game and being like, yeah, we dropped that one, but I still kind of feel okay about it. Like I said, this game still went to overtime despite all that stuff. And Denver still needed Russell Westbrook to be great in the end to pull this one out. And if you're the Clippers, again, Westbrook shot 17 times. You're like, all right, that's kind of great. You kind of feel like anytime a possession ends with a Westbrook jumper, that's kind of a win. And you just look at the way that they played off of Russell Westbrook. That's exactly what they want to happen. Ramona Shelburne had this stat in a piece that ran over the weekend. It's a great stat. The Nuggets gave Russell Westbrook 9.5 feet of space. 9.6 to be exact. 9.6 feet of space when he was shooting. It's the most ever in the playoffs with a minimum of 5 attempts. That is not just Tony Allening the guy. That is just straight, you're just shooting on an outside court by yourself kind of stuff. I mean, that's ridiculous. And Westbrook's going to hit a few of them, and they're going to live with it. And I think they're willing to live with the Westbrook game that he had. Now, the inbound, that was an awesome play. Like, I'm not trying to dismiss Russell Westbrook. Him getting a hand on that, getting it to go off of Harden in that moment, the energy that he brings, like all that stuff is awesome. But he had that dumb early drive late in the game that kind of worked. It ended up not biting him in the butt like it did against Minnesota a few weeks ago. But it's the Westbrook roller coaster. This was a high point in the roller coaster, but we know how this goes with him. And overall, I think the Clippers strategy worked, even if it didn't work necessarily in this one. I think without playing the results, you got to be happy with the process. Jokic wasn't, like I said, his normal dominant self. He has to be even better, it feels like. And it wasn't even a bad Jokic game. I'm not saying that, but he has to be better I think, for Denver to have a consistent chance in this series. And by the way, he might. Like, I'm not putting it past him. I'm not saying that that's even a slim chance. You might argue that there's a better chance that he's even better because this guy is just the ultimate problem solver. So, but it's just, he's got to be better in games 2, 3, 4, whatever. And he probably will be. Two guys I'm monitoring, Michael Porter Jr. and Ben Simmons, officially under the spotlight. Congratulations. Porter was benched with 8 minutes to go. He was terrible. You hear this quote from Jokic. Here's the quote. "If you're not going to be engaged right now, then you're not supposed to be playing this sport." End quote. That was from after the game. Michael Porter Jr. was kind of a central figure in the whole Malone, Calvin Booth firing thing. I don't know that he has a long-term future in Denver. And based on the benching in this one, where you're playing Russell Westbrook over him and other guys over him, I just wonder what that's going to look like. He's got to have to be better. I mean, he just has to play with more urgency, with more effort, all these things, more engagement, to use Jokic's words. And then Ben Simmons, backup center in this game. I didn't hate the minutes. I didn't love the minutes. Can he shoot like once confidently? I don't know. it was weird. Two guys I'm monitoring for the rest of the series: Michael Porter Jr., Ben Simmons. Moving on. Went a little bit longer on that one than I wanted to. Knicks Pistons, going to be short on this one, but I have two major notes. Number one, Tibbs made adjustments in game one. He didn't do the thing that we thought he was going to do, which was to do all the things that we thought he was going to do because he did those things in the regular season. And Tibbs in the regular season and Tibbs in the playoffs tends to be the same Tibbs. But I wondered, okay, would you stick with Mikal Bridges on Cade Cunningham? Nope. Went with OG Anunoby on Cade Cunningham. That was awesome. I thought that worked for the most part. And then he played the two big lineup of Towns and Mitchell Robinson 9 minutes. So yay for the Knicks. Yay for Tibbs. I thought it worked in the Knicks win in game one. And then look, J.B. Bickerstaff has also been accused of maybe not being the guy to make adjustments when he needs to. Also made an adjustment going into game one. He went with Tobias Harris for the most part on Karl Anthony Towns. It had been Jalen Duren during the regular season, so he goes with Harris on Cat, something that we brought up last week in terms of a matchup. I didn't mind the call. It also didn't work. Cat went 4 for 5 when Harris was guarding him, and he had 23 points on 10 of 14 shooting overall. He was just unstoppable in that pick and pop action. Do they go back to Jalen Duren to try to rough him up? Do they stick with Tobias Harris? Do they try Asar Thompson? Do they try Cade Cunningham? Do they try some other things? Or do they say, you know what? Maybe we just don't think Cat's going to go 10 for 14 all the time. Let's try Tobias Harris for one more game before we start switching things up in game two. Wolves-Lakers, I'm not going to overreact to this one. But mainly because Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo combined for 32 points and Minnesota made 21 three-pointers. It's really hard to overreact. It was a weird game because this was an interesting series because of the matchups. What do the Lakers do when the Wolves go big? What do the Wolves do when the Lakers go really small? And we saw some of that stuff, but all the results and like the data points are going to be skewed because the Wolves just made all of their shots. They just had this outlier shooting performance in game one. But maybe it's not that much of an outlier. The Lakers, your defense was terrible. Of Minnesota's 42 three-point attempts, 27 were classified as wide open. The other 15 were considered open. So that a single three-pointer that they took was considered to be tightly or very tightly defended. NBA.com has all of this data on their website. You could find it easily. So all of their threes were open. No wonder they made 50% of them. The rotations were off. I thought JJ Redick's team was not prepared for a playoff game. They want to leave players open. That's part of the Lakers' strategy defensively. They have had a lot of success with that in the regular season. I always wondered, okay, is this going to work in the playoffs? When some of these teams don't necessarily have a guy that you can play off of, the Lakers, they will always choose one guy and say, we don't care if you shoot, and we're going to crowd the rest of the court defensively. And we're going to make things difficult for 4 out of the 5 players. And if that fifth wink link beats us, then, tip your cap, you move on. I don't know if that's going to work against Minnesota. They don't have a ton of guys who you can always play off of, especially if they're hitting shots like that. I guess the guy would be McDaniels, but he was playing well. If they're making shots like that, I guess it's just over, but I don't know that that's awesome analysis because, again, they made 50% of their threes. I don't know how many teams are going to lose games when they're shooting like that. So, but defensively, they just got to be better, right? It's one thing to leave a couple of guys open or one guy open. It's another thing for all of Minnesota's three-pointers to be open shots. You got to contest these shots. Too much one-on-one on the other side for the Lakers when they were on offense. Luka was just sort of in solo player mode. Like he was not playing with teammates. It was a weird LeBron game, maybe because of that. But it also feels that LeBron could just be like, I'm LeBron, give me the ball. So it was a little bit of a weird LeBron game. Not overreacting. I'm expecting an adjustment, especially from LeBron, especially from Luka. We've seen this before. I'll have more on this series later in the week. Thunder Grizzlies. No notes, all right? Other than OKC is way better. This is going to be a sweep. Mark it down. It's a done deal. There's a lot of Ja Morant trade talk out there. I'm watching Jaren Jackson Jr. No reporting on this. I am not reporting anything. It's complete speculation, but he is up for an extension this summer, and that's when guys have to start making decisions. So just something, he's a guy on my list of guys that I'm just watching what's going to happen with them. All right, next game, Celtics Magic. This went about how you'd expect. The Magic scored 94.1 points per 100 possessions in the half court. Here's the crazy part. Boston was actually worse. 92 points per 100 possessions in the half court. This Magic defense is awesome. There's a ton of size. They don't give up stuff. But the Celtics dominated in transition. 24 points off of 15 turnovers, and I don't expect that to change. The Celtics are an awesome transition team. They get out in the open court in a hurry. They don't even necessarily have to get all the way to the basket if they don't want to, because they'll just pull up from three, so it just sort of happens in the blink of an eye. And the Magic, I don't know if you've heard, don't have any good ball handlers. It's just a lot of pressure on Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. And unless Cole Anthony is going to have some huge play-in game like he had against the Hawks, you know, the Celtics bench is deeper. They're just a better team, okay? I don't know what else to say about it. The Magic can clean some of this stuff up in terms of the turnovers. It's not going to matter, especially if they're only getting up 27 three-point attempts. They need to get up more threes. Way easier said than done. The Celtics don't allow a lot of threes. The Magic, by habit, don't put up a lot of threes. I think if you're the Magic, you could say, well, maybe we can rough them up a little bit more and see where it goes, but the Celtics are going to win this series. Heat-Cavs, I thought this game was more competitive than the score would lead you to believe. Cleveland ended up winning by 21 points. Ty Jerome just erupts in the fourth quarter to put this thing away. They didn't need all of those Ty Jerome points, but they did get them. I do think Miami can push Cleveland more in this series, but they need to clean things up on offense. The half court was a mess. Cleveland was face guarding and denying Tyler Hero. They just identified Hero as the head of the snake. They cut it off, and Miami's offense went lifeless. Here's a stat to watch. Just 5 field goal attempts at the rim for the whole game for the Heat. 5 attempts at the rim all game for Miami. They got 41 attempts from the mid-range. In other words, Cleveland took away all the stuff that they wanted to take away. Only 31 three-point attempts also for Miami. That's not going to be enough. So they forced Miami to live in the mid-range, and it worked. And Miami hit probably more mid-range shots than they usually would, or a team usually would. They hit a higher than average amount. They need to get more shots at the rim, and if that's not going to happen, then they need to trade out some of those mid-range shots for three-point attempts, because that shot profile was a mess, and they were only really in this game because they made a lot of those tough shots, but you can't count on that. I think they need to play through Wiggins and Bam more, especially if Hero's going to be defended like this. I think you need a big Wiggins series. And I think you're probably going to start Davion Mitchell in game 2 for his defense, but also for his ball handling. The Alec Burks things has been nice. It's been cute. It's worked. But it's the playoffs now. I like Alec Burks. Maybe he could still play off the bench, but you got to just play your better 5 players. And Davion Mitchell has to be in there to start the game. All in all, Cavs, more talented, deeper team, a lot more scoring options, guys who could just pop off. Maybe Miami can steal a game here. But for the Heat, you're really kind of more focused on the process than the results and whether or not there's like a second option outside of Tyler Hero just going off. And if that's not the case, then you have to figure that out in the offseason. Last game, Rockets-Warriors. Of all the game ones, this one made me change my mind the least. This game played out almost exactly how I expected and reinforced everything I thought about these two teams and about this matchup going into this series. If the Warriors get 56 combined points from Steph and Jimmy, they're going to be competitive. It does not mean they're going to win every game. That is the requirement. They need that. They need big Steph and they need big Jimmy games. No Jonathan Kuminga in the playoffs. Warriors fans, there's a segment of Warriors fans, there's a segment of national media that say, why can't Kuminga get in there? I'm good with it. I don't think that this is a Kuminga series. I think Steve Kerr, you've got to trust him on this. He knows Jonathan Kuminga. Yes, the idea of Kuminga, this big physical player who can match up a little bit with Houston's size, the theory of that makes sense, but there's a reason he's not in the rotation. He does not shoot well. You can't, and if you're playing Jimmy Butler 40 minutes, if you're playing Draymond Green closer to 40 minutes, I don't know when Kuminga gets in there. I don't know when the minutes are there for him. Because the shooting is a problem when Kuminga is on the court with one of Jimmy or Draymond or obviously both. So it's just going to be hard to play him. Also, he's okay as a one-on-one defender. I thought he was better last year than he was this year when he's trying to be kind of move his sliders over more towards the offense and I can do stuff and I'm up for an extension kind of mode. But defensively, like off the ball, he's kind of a mess. The rebounding, you have to beg him to rebound the ball, and it's the playoffs. I don't think that Steve Kerr wants to deal with that. There's just a lot that you have to figure out when Jonathan Kuminga is on the court. And Steve Kerr likes no-frills, low-maintenance guys. That's how it's been with him. Always. He loves the low-maintenance guys. Jonathan Kuminga is a high maintenance player. And when it's okay if you're a star, you figure out ways to work around Draymond. You figure out ways to work around Jimmy Butler, right? It does not work if you're a role player. And that's what Jonathan Kuminga is. He is a high maintenance role player. And you could fault Golden State's inability to develop him. I never thought that they should have drafted him in the first place because they've never had a track record for developing rookies, and he was just so raw coming out of the coming into the draft that I just didn't see how it was going to work out. Not necessarily taking a victory lap here, even though maybe I am a little bit. But I'm good with not playing Kuminga. He doesn't have the feel for the game. He's not ready. If you don't trust him in the end of the regular season, if you don't trust him in the play-in game, I don't know why you would trust him against the number 2 seed in the West. Regardless of the matchup. Moving off of Kuminga, Moses Moody, I thought he's mostly been good. He seemed lost in this game. He needs to be better. There was one possession where he brought the ball up half court, and it was like he's never seen a basketball before. The Warriors were really fortunate to not have that end up in a turnover, and they do tend to turn the ball over too much at the end of these games anyway. Buddy Hield, Quentin Post, Pods, they combined to go 3 for 12 on three-pointers. Those guys are so ridiculously important to Golden State. That's another reason why this game was probably a little bit closer, is because you just didn't have good shooting performances from those guys. If you do, this probably feels a lot different. But the Warriors won this game because of a late Curry flurry. He was hitting impossible shots. He had that one from the corner where he's practically running away from the basket and running out of bounds. It was just insane. But he's going to have to do that for them to win this series. Remember the last time that these teams played at the end of the regular season? Famously, Amen Thompson holds him to 1 for 10 shooting. The 1 3-pointer that he did go in, it was like a heave from the half court. That was not the case in this one. Steph did the Steph thing. He figured it out. But I don't think the Warriors also, going back to the things that I expected and how I'm not changing my mind, I don't think they have an answer for the Rockets' size. They dominated. I'd play Steven Adams more in game 2 if I'm Ime. The double big lineup worked in the second half, even with Steph on the floor, which is really important because the Rockets would mostly, in the matchups during the regular season when they wanted to play Steven Adams with Alperen Şengün, they wouldn't do it when Steph was on the court because they tend to like to zone up in those alignments. They played him with Steph on the court, and it worked. And it wasn't necessarily all zone in those possessions, but it worked. And that, to me, is huge. That is something that if you're walking away as Ime Udoka, you're like, okay, we got a proof of concept in that. We're probably going to lean into that a little bit more. They were even in this game, the Rockets were, with Amen Thompson and Jalen Green scoring 8 and 7 points apiece. Those guys need to be better. I'm not sure Jalen Green is the guy. If Jalen Green he's such a trick-or-treat guy. If Jalen Green is awesome, he went 3 for 15. If he's 8 for 15, he could have just as easily been 8 for 18. Like, that's just the Jalen Green experience. There are going to be games where Jalen Green just shoots the Rockets to a win in this series. There's going to be games also where it looks like this. Like, that's just what it's going to be. Amen Thompson has to be better. I think he was more successful in the second half when he was really focusing on not settling and just getting as close to the basket as possible. And he even punked Steph Curry on one little push turnaround jumper thing. I would be leaning into that more if I'm Amen Thompson. But you got to get better shooting overall. The Rockets, 6 of 29 in this game from three-point range for 21% shooting from deep. I think they're not going to be as good as Golden State from three-point range in this series, but I think it'll be better than that. I still have this series going 7 games. That was the game 1 recap. Did we do it in 16 minutes? Let's check here. 24 minutes, almost. So whatever, 3 minutes per series. That'll do it. I'll be back later this week for more NBA playoff content. This has been Real GM Radio. Thanks for listening.